My blackness kinks in the rain. Wraps around my naps are a matter of pride. My black is big, bright as harvest moon, warm as Africa, resonating like white in ignorant ears, their self-hate determining language. My black eats its chicken baked, can't stand Kool-Aid or rap made after 92. My black rocks Chicago, Journey, REM, yeah, I said it. My black is losing its religion. My black swims in civil rights afterbirth, tap dances on the grave of Jim Crow. My black need not bow to black on black haters in the hood. They'd rise if they could, but they can't till they pull me down, down, down. They want to be down with my black because my black makes success seem effortless. They can't see the struggle in getting the degree and fighting them with those field slave mentalities. They assume being a house slave was easy. My black knows the only difference between a nigger and a nigga is an accent, a fallacious argument, and a white record exec's bottom line. My black's love is too fierce to kill itself with that word, covered by ancestral scars that grant cred deeper than the streets could ever give. My blackness won't be shackled by small minds or shadowed by their gaze. My black is uniquely, essentially, and unapologetically me. Greetings. My name is Maria James-Thiaw, and I'm happy to be a guest hostess for this episode of Culture in Maine. Today, we have a plethora of poets from Pennsylvania's capital and the twisted graphics of Cortland Murray. I'm also looking forward to sharing more of my own poetry with you. First, let's take a little trip upriver to the Burg, Harrisburg that is, where the almost uptown poetry cartel has been making its mark on the poetry scene for over a decade.
It's like a kazoo, a pocket submarine buzzing like my cell phone, set to vibrate every 7 seconds, sometimes 5. My love is semi-musical, amateurish in my own 2 hands. But baby, when you duet with me, it's like Beethoven playing a kazoo. My love may not nurture like Billie Holiday's faucet or those motherly breasts heaving and flowing like milk on tap at my favorite brew pub. But I drink at the brew pub and then play with my kazoo, so that counts for something, doesn't it? My love is never satisfied with just 1 or 2 or even 3 songs, and doesn't care if it's a classic rock or classical. Because after a while, all love songs sound the same way. Anyway, you want it? Yeah, that's the way I need it down below on my kazoo. My love could feed a nation. But hell, maybe a whole continent. If geneticists could come up with a way for my seed to grow vegetables and fruits where farmers sow such things. And as long as public lewdness laws were negated. Hey, confound it, my love knows no bounds or boundaries, except for when that tiny membrane holding those tiny songs inside my tiny kazoo loses its elasticity and goes limp. And I'm going limp just hearing the words tiny over and over again and knowing how people laugh at kazoo music. My love, it's like a kazoo. It changes the way voices are heard. I swear it do. Humming in my head, on my head, the words "I love you till I'm dead" are repeated back to me. But I can't understand them, you see, because she's playing my kazoo.
Marty Esworthy.
Hello, Marty Esworthy.
This is called "I Heard Again the Murmur of the Water." Flow of fountains, cries of iridescent swallows, ancient blue shadows, those near our plaza. Precursors of misaligned vertebrae in your one and only neck. And color, with grace and purpose, is restored to this cool pastel planet. Yes, maintain, sit up straight, keep your head level, no matter what the cost. Switch hands, and I mean switch. Alternate till the end of time. This will equalize tension. You catch your breath. I want the waiter with the water. You smile beatifically. Whatever bobbles up. The Nikes of Cherbourg. My running shoes, soggy, redundant in a season of warm monsoon. Squish, plosh, squish, plosh. They sing a song called Stormy Weather. Subsequently, a year, a month, an hour ago, next week, I sell them to a tuk-tuk driver for 80 baht. And to this day, I do not believe they shall ever again attain soft and or dry.
You can enjoy seasoned poets as well as new voices at the Almost Uptown Poetry Cartel's reading Poetry Thursdays, every Thursday night at 7 p.m. at the Midtown Scholar Bookstore in Harrisburg. This week's feature was York poet Soul Cry, otherwise known as Jocelyn Kearse, the author of Passing By, a new release from Poem Sugar Press.
Inconvenient, painfully overbearing, your love is a bully. Overweight, ugly, lice-infested, pimple-faced bully. With braces, low self-esteem, and a shit ton of insecurities, bully. A friendless, helpless, wounded, teary-eyed bully.
The Almost Uptown Poetry Cartel, however, is not the only long-lasting poetry group in Harrisburg. In fact, this year, Nathaniel Gadsden's Writer's Workshop is celebrating its 36th year. Dr. Gadsden,
yes, sir.
Reverend Dr. Nathaniel Gadsden.
All right.
You are celebrating 36 years, right? Of the Writer's Workshop.
Writer's Workshop.
How did it all begin?
Came back from college, wanted to do something in Harrisburg that had some cultural significance for African American people. And interestingly enough, I met Mim Wharton. Opened up this idea to her about doing a poetry, venue. Came with the idea of the Writer's Workshop, and had my first reading, and had 5 white students from Bishop McDevitt walk in. Chris Fagley being the leader, and I see Chris all the time. What a great guy! And he was like, "Hey, I understand you have a poetry thing here." Just took off from there, and so folks started finding us, started coming down, and we literally just made a platform for writers. And in the end, everybody has come through over the 36 years, and we've had a wonderful time.
Wow.
Fire burning eyes. If only you could see they weren't mine, but a disguise to cover up the lies. Crimes these eyes commit and see. Free, that's all I really want to be. Free me. My soul. No one can control, no. Not even the government can keep it chained down because I am justice. And I plan to fill these empty spaces with freedom in this country. We're all connected by these invisible chains and these invisible lanes, yet we're all one and the same. But I, justice, will break those chains. And it'll be a victory we all gain. And print some marks of freedom, be marked down in the Hall of Fame.
Okay, so I just wrote this last night, and it means a lot to me because of the accident, and I've done a number of interviews, but reading poetry is something that I am far more fearful of than any interview I've ever done. There's not even a title yet, but I think it's worthy of sharing. He was a doe-eyed, rosy-cheeked, missing-toothed, mischievous little boy who crawled up in my lap, smiled at me, pulled back my hair, used his words to hit me. With the seemingly silly, "You look like a monster." He said it with a giggle. And the entire intent was to be funny. He certainly wasn't trying to hurt anyone. But it did. I mean, this kid had quite the silly right hook. And it had to have been the look that crossed my face, or the way my mom crossed the room to protect her baby. I can only assume that if she hadn't seen my face, he surely did. The small wet trace of a tear on my cheek slipped out the corner of my non-plastic eye like a broken faucet leak, giving a whole new meaning to an ugly cry. And it wouldn't be the last time that what someone speaks hurt me. Then there was a guy, and he said it through a text. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm old-fashioned. But big things like breakups, baby announcements, and insults should be said to your face. Unfortunately, that just wasn't the case. He just couldn't wait. It was a bit of a revelation. Because apparently, he was suffering from emotional constipation. Or, he was just a coward. He wound up and threw his pitch at my metal plates and screws. Sometimes it makes a difference what words you use. But not this time. Because he decided to choose the phrasing, putting this delicately here, I was a shallow bastard who overlooked a great woman. Thank you for being so clear, but delicate? I don't think so. I mean, you think I don't know you're not so underlying message? You're saying I'm ugly. I'm unattractive. I'm not your type. But I have an awesome personality. So I asked, because apparently I'm a sucker for punishment. Do you mean the accident scars and stuff, or my weight? To which he responded, both. I wish I had swung when it sailed towards home plate, but my consolation prize for letting it hit me instead, leaving a small part of my heart dead, was to take first base. And it doesn't matter if you win the game if you're still in last place, because the loser doesn't get a trophy. The people at the top are mostly pretty, with 2 great eyes and no scars. They've never had to overcome tragedy quite like ours. They leave you broken in all the tender, fragile spots. And there's nothing quite like hearing a couple articulate your fear and very darkest thoughts. They stood there and talked about me like I wasn't even there. And maybe that happens to everyone who's stuck in a wheelchair. People don't care if their words hurt you because obviously you can take it. And I just wanted to tell her, several sideways glances, it's still a stare. And I can still hear her whisper when she asked him if he thought she was born that way. He leaned in and he kissed her. And then I heard him say, People aren't born that screwed up. And you know, he wasn't totally wrong. I knew my outward hardware and patches made it clear I didn't permanently belong to those born with a handicap. And I felt like I wasn't entitled to feeling bad, that it wasn't mine to have and I needed to stay strong. I held it together. But now I see it and I realize it doesn't matter whether it's them or the kid in line at the grocery store who humiliates her mother when she points at my face and is as loud as she can, stands there and shouts it across the checkouts. And I take it. What's wrong with her face? The thing is, though, there is no way to erase the words that will settle in my heart. I wish there was some way that I could impart the impact of words that can be never taken back. Not in an attempt to get revenge or attack, just a way to say, I hope and pray they never see the day where someone with just a few words or a look takes their dignity away. Hold on, let me make myself abundantly clear. Karma is something that some of y'all should definitely fear. And although I'm not one to interfere, I'd like to warn those who've hurt me most that inner beauty will always supersede the need to hide the ugly ghost inside, which I only lost in the crash. That's when it finally began to subside. And eventually, maybe not today, and maybe not tomorrow, but eventually, everything comes full circle.
Excited to introduce you to my next guest. She is a public speaker, an advocate, she's motivational, but she's also a writer. I'd like to introduce you to poet Amanda Clare.
Hello.
Hi, good to have you at Culture in Maine.
Absolutely, it's good to be here, for sure.
The poem that you shared with us was very powerful.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit of where that comes from? What was that about?
Sure. Well, I actually, everything in that poem those were all from real stories and real things that have occurred to me. About 5 years ago, I went under the back end of a tractor trailer because of distracted driving, and that's where the advocacy comes in that you were talking about.
Yes.
And I do many things. I try to write a blog, amandareconstructed.com, and keep up with doing speaking engagements all over the country. But in my free time, there are things that I've experienced along my journey that I use. And I often use them to inspire others, but there are definitely some dark things and events that have happened to me over the course. And that's something that I've dealt with in just regards to how people have reacted to my face during the recovery process, because part of the accident was that I crushed that side of my face. So it's been a long road, but it comes from a very emotional place.
Have you, when you speak out about distracted driving, do you ever incorporate your poems into your public speaking?
I typically don't, because there's something that's really personal to me. I've been working diligently while going to school full-time and being a speaker and an advocate. I've been trying to work on writing a memoir. So that's a big deal, and I've been considering whether or not I should maybe put some of my poems throughout to kind of let people know how it feels and what that emotion comes from. So in my speeches, I typically don't share any of those poems, but I wouldn't be opposed to it.
You know me, I think that's a great idea. So from your memoir and your writing and your public speaking, what would you say is like the main thing that you want to get across to people? We know that you don't want people to drive distracted, that it could be a catastrophic accident, and you're blessed to recover from one, but not everybody does. But beyond that, your story after the accident, the things you've gone through, what do you want people to get from that?
Well, I love that question because I'm always asked about the distracted driving. And of course, right now, especially with as big as that is right now in our news and it's constantly being talked about, I'm all about the advocacy and all about stopping distracted driving. But for me, it's so much more than that. And I don't really get to talk about those things. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate the question because what I want people to take from me is that I'm not special. And I think that kind of startles people because I'm so often told, oh my gosh, you're so different than everyone else and you're so unique and you handled your tragedy so well, but I'm not special. Everybody has tragedy and everybody has struggles and things they have to overcome, and my tragedies and struggles are different but not any more significant than yours or anyone else's. Mm-hmm. I think that when you encounter these things that we all have to deal with in life, because you can't get a rainbow without a little bit of rain, you have to make a choice. And you can choose to be a victim or a survivor. You can choose to let it define your character or let it define your struggle. And for me, I've just chosen to let it be my driving force. To let it make me who I am, to push every single day to be better, to be more, to be a woman that I'd want to be friends with, that others can respect. And I realized that that's hard for people to do, so I want them to look at my journey and maybe feel inspired to join me in choosing to be happy, to choose to be better, to choose to be positive. And from that particular poem, I want people to hear it and recognize that we've all, maybe not intentionally, stared at somebody in a wheelchair. Or made a comment that we didn't think somebody would hear in regards to maybe their disability, maybe their race, maybe their gender, maybe some abnormality that they can't control, and it's not okay.
You know what? Something that crossed my mind as you were reciting your poem was how there's probably not a woman on the planet that hasn't at some time felt insecure or been told by a guy, you're not my type, and it can be devastating. Right. And so that yours was because of your accident, but at the same time you asked the question about your weight too, and that is something that so many of us struggle with. And so I really think that can really cross a lot of bridges and touch a lot of different women. I think that we can relate to your message in that way.
I hope so. I really do. I think that we as women especially, we have to stick together. I think that it's in our nature to be a little bit catty, but we're all we've got. And we're sisters. And I don't think it matters what your background is. We have enough self-esteem issues without somebody else reaffirming them. So always think before you speak, because you can never take a word back. And always remember that you shouldn't say something about someone that you wouldn't want said about yourself.
Very true. Good words to live by and remember. Well, thank you so much for sharing your work with us and your experience. And I'm just really glad to have you on the program.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
We're here with Cal Weary, the director of the New Hope School of the Arts, and I'm just so excited to have you here at Culture in Maine again.
Thank you.
And I'm really excited to hear that you're not only this very sophisticated brother running a school, but a former punk rocker as well.
I don't know what your sources told you. Mostly I've done Negro spirituals.
Oh, yes.
I mean, it's one of those things you have different stations in your life, and at one point in time for about 14 years I used to jump off stages and headbutt people, sing some loud music, but it set me up for what I do. I still jump off stages.
You still have to headbutt the kids?
No, we never headbutt the children.
Okay, that's good. That's good to know.
No, we do.
So tell me this. There is a lot of talk out there about science and technology, which is wonderful. However, we're losing sight of the arts and education. Can you tell us why are the arts important? What does that do for a young person?
Well, first off, I want to attack the science and technology piece. We are science and technology. I've often spoke to people about the performing arts and said, no other class in a school culminates all those pieces, brings all those pieces together like performing arts. There's history, there is English, there's mathematics, there's music. All those pieces come together to produce a show. And we work that way with our students. Arts education is important because if nothing else, it teaches the skills to deal with the unknown, to step outside of the box. And if there's one thing that our country is lacking in, is creating citizens that do that. So, that's the business we're in. We're not just a school, we're a business. Our business is citizens. That's what we produce.
Do you see, what do you see as your students go through your classes and develop? How do they change as a result of their education there?
It's really about the options. When we first started our program at New Hope Academy Charter School, they had students who liked the arts. Some of them listened to things. They had aspirations, but they didn't necessarily have the training. But more than that, it's the options. I have a kid who his only option before we came there was the Air Force or psychology, because these are the only things that were shown to him. But after that, it was like, man, it's rough on you now, isn't it? Because now you have these options. You could be a lighting designer, sound designer, makeup artist, costumer. You could be an anchor person. You could be a dancer. There's all these other options that open up when the arts come in. And you can be a doctor, a lawyer who loves the arts.
That's
but
true.
The point is that we're building a higher function thought skill in the skill set in these students and these young adults. And that's why it's important. That's why it's important for them. But most of all, it's options. We've offered options to kids that never thought they could get on a stage and do the thing that most people would rather die instead of doing. That's speak in front of an audience.
Right.
So these are the things that happen.
So I find that many administrators lose sight of all the different aspects of the arts. And like you mentioned, there's so many different things, rather than just being the actor on the stage, but the lighting, the makeup, there's so many different, the writing, so many different aspects of it. Have you seen kids go on to artistic careers?
Oh, definitely. I have so many of my students right now. I've been teaching for coming up on 17 years, and it's about 17 years, 16, 17 years, somewhere around there. And I have students who are working in every aspect, every facet of the arts world, and also not, but they're still lovers and patrons of the arts. A lot of my students come back and they speak or they teach with my students. And that's a wonderful thing to have someone come back and be better than me. I have students who do feature-length films, who are recording artists, who tour the world.
Wow.
They edify every inch of me because, I started out just wanting to give them more than I had when I was an art student. And they've given me so much more in coming back and bringing that home. And I'm constantly in contact with those old students. So
That's wonderful.
I definitely see a major like a shift in the importance of the arts. And yes, it is the first thing that they always think of getting rid of, but there's a reason for it. The arts will endure.
Yes,
Sometimes
they will.
we are the ones that they get rid of because no matter what, it's always a part of us. It will always continue to be there.
Yeah, there's no way that's still in little babies. It's still coming up, and there's no way they could fully get rid of it. That's true. That's true.
It's built into our DNA.
That's right. So do you find that your teachers that you have, are they active in their different artistic professions?
Well, first off, our school is different because we have professionals that are working, still auditioning, still creating. I'm not saying that they don't have that at some other schools, but honestly, we're a performance-based classes, performance-based school with a living curriculum. No one's allowed to steal that term, living curriculum. That's mine. It's going in my book. But I honestly believe that every student deserves that living curriculum, something that bends and ebbs to them, that changes with them, that as their needs change. I have a girl who comes in as a dancer. She's a dancer. She knows she's a dancer since she's 4 years old. But now she comes in and she takes a stage and design class, and now she's designing lights for dancers. And maybe in a tougher industry where there's 1,000 people just like her or 10,000, now she has a skill set that allows her to light dancers. And because she was one, she knows what she wants to see out there. So the point is we're building skill sets in these students. Our teachers are those types of people who are go-to people who do more than one thing. They've been out there, they've auditioned, they've been slapped down, they've had triumphs, and me too. As an administrator, I'm not some guy who just looks at the arts from the outside. I'm an artist and a former artist in some respects. So what I expect from the students is to be as great, if not greater than me.
Wow, that is wonderful. I think we need more of you around in the cities around Pennsylvania.
That can be kind of scary because sometimes my schedule is such that I feel like I pass myself on the street as it is. So. But there are a lot of folks out there, and more than that, we need to connect with each other. Your county, and then maybe it's just me seeing it this way, a lot of times we stay in our own little fish bowls. We can see each other, we can see each other's work, but we don't have any tangible connection to that work, and we don't necessarily work together. And I'd like to challenge some of the arts organizations that are out there that don't have partnerships. Come partner with me. Let's partner.
That's true. That's great.
Let's pull together resources. Because it's not about the battles in the street for how many kids we can have here, how many kids we have there. It's about the end result, creating those citizens, lovers of the arts, creators of the arts.
That's right. So you heard it here first, folks. It's time to partner up. And remember that the goal is educating the children and helping them. I like that term as well, living curriculum.
Yeah, like I said, please don't steal my term. All I have is my book when I'm 80. That's what I'm going to do, and comedy.
Well, see, I'm a professor, so I'll cite it when I steal it.
There you go. There you go. There you go.
Well, thank you so much for meeting with me today, Cal. It's great to talk with you. Thank you. For over a decade, there has been buzz in the artistic community about post-Blackness. The idea that in this postmodern world, an African-American artist is not limited by the constraints that may have limited his or her forefathers. In 1926, Langston Hughes wrote The Negro Artist on Racial Mountain, in which he claimed that wanting to be seen as a poet, not a Negro poet, meant that you wanted to write like a white poet. Well, today's poets and artists don't agree with that statement. Coining a phrase from Touré's book, Who's Afraid of Post-Blackness, their work is rooted in, but unrestricted by Blackness. This means that they will not be limited by any subject matter that they want to tackle with their artwork, whether it be visual, literary, or musical. Today, Black artists like Cortland Murray, our next guest, see boundless possibilities when it comes to the subject matter of their work. I would like to welcome multimedia artist Cortland Murray to Culture in Maine.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Cortland.
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, I'm so glad to talk with you today. Tell us a little bit about your artistic background.
Oh, wow. Well, it's been quite a journey, I can say that. I started out in Philadelphia, and I grew up in the 80s, obviously. You know, how 80s were, it's all kinds of crazy movies and Saturday morning cartoons.
True, the best.
Action figures, Ninja Turtles and G.I. Joes and everything like that.
It's just not the same now.
Thundercats, all kinds of stuff. So growing up, I was inspired by a lot of different forms of entertainment around me. And that pretty much started my journey at an early age. You know, as soon as I picked up a pencil, I started drawing all my favorite cartoon characters and action figures, and you know, it started that way. And I eventually progressed into, you know, starting with like airbrushing when I was a teenager, and eventually got into my digital work and everything. What I consider myself as a multimedia artist.
Now, like you say, you have a diverse array of drawings. I saw everything from zombies to, I love the black girl with the leather and the spikes.
Oh yeah, the punk chick. Yeah, yes, the punk chick. Yes.
Yeah, so that's non-traditional, I would definitely say.
No. I was always an oddball growing up, and you know, I never really fit into a certain category with my art. I was always kind of you know, it being influenced by so many different artists and different styles, from all kinds of backgrounds, from different races and you know, regions of the world. I developed this style of my own, basically, and as what you see now is what I do.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, you know, they don't really consider, you know, I was never really considering myself like a black artist or anything like that. I was just an artist that happened to be black, you know, happened to be a person of color.
Do you find that sometimes black people expect something different of you or want to push you in a different direction, maybe as you're growing up?
Honestly, I never really felt like that. I mean, like I said, I always was like an oddball. I was always one that kind of was like, you know, you had the crowd doing this thing, and then there was me over here doing my own thing. I was always kind of like beating to my own drum.
Well, one thing that we have in common, besides being the oddball and doing our own thing, and the locks.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But
absolutely.
We also have very popular and important dads that know everybody in Harrisburg. And your dad's been very active in the community. So tell us a little bit about Wendell Murray and what's going on with Barack.
Oh man. Well, what can I tell you that, you know, everybody doesn't already know about Wendell? You know? I'm very proud of my father. I mean, he has really made a name for himself in Harrisburg, and you know, he's expanding out even further now, just, you know, in the surrounding areas, New York, Lancaster. But he was always had this entrepreneurial spirit about him. You know, he was always doing his own thing. Growing up in his household, like he started off as he had his own shop, he had his own hair salon. You know, back way back in the early days, and he had, you know, he was doing his own thing. Eventually, like he moved on from that, and he had this dream of starting this drama team. You know, that's how Barack started. It started as a little drama team. We actually used to go to churches and everything like that and put on productions, a lot of stage work. Then he basically gave the company an overhaul and decided to become more of a community-focused arts organization. He's got this Next Gen thing now, which is amazing.
Like, what is Next Gen? Next
Gen, and I didn't want to dive into it too much because I don't want to sound like I don't know what I'm talking about, but in a nutshell, basically, it's kind of like a convention. It's an annual convention for just arts of all kind, a collection of all the arts in the community. You're talking about visual stuff, you're talking about performing arts, you're talking about spoken word, anything and everything, anything to just bring everyone together. And I think it's a one-day event. You know, and it's constantly growing now. Like it started off as this place that he did in Hack. It's this you know, it's this convention that he started in Hack last year. And now he's gained so much interest in it that it's expanded beyond belief, and it's exciting to see where it's going to go.
Where would you be if you didn't have the arts in school, or didn't have the Art Institute to go to, or didn't have parents that encouraged that in you? So
where would I be? I mean, that's a good question. I mean, it's really just one of those what it could, you know, what if, you know, I had to leave it open because it's like I did have two parents that were very supportive of me, you know, with my art from a very early age. You know, my mom used to tell me, you know, I was kind of like an only child. So growing up, she was always like, go in your room and create something. I would do it. You know, a lot of kids are like, I want to go play outside and stuff. I'd be going in my room and creating work. You know, creating. I even remember when I was younger, growing up in Philly, I would just make costumes. Like I would see you know, characters and stuff in movies and everything like that, and I would gather things that were around the house and make these costumes. Both of my parents were very supportive of my work. You know, they always supported me, and that alone was one of the driving forces that really just kind of, you know, set me into being what I am today. I mean, if there was no, you know, if I didn't have the classes and the schooling and everything I had, I honestly think I still would be an artist. It would be a lot harder, but I think I still, you know,
because you had that influence at home.
Yeah, I feel like this is 100% who I am.
My son is 3 years old, and he loves The Cool Family. We have a book that he asked me to read over and over and over again. Yes. And it has your illustrations, and he loves it. And also, you did a picture for him at a festival at in
a couple weeks ago, right? The Father's Day thing.
Yes. And my son's name is Muhammad, and you drew Super Muhammad with a cape and a big M on his chest. And I had to put that up high because he took it and he was flying around the house with it. And I'm like, you're gonna ruin the picture. So thank you though. He loves it, and you're great.
That's what makes it all worth it. You know, I mean, just as much work as I put into it, and just with everything that I've done, it's not even about the money or anything like that. It's really just about the satisfaction and the look on people's faces when they see my work. You know, when they I've done a couple children's books, and to see like a kid reading that book and taking something from that's you can't buy that. You really can't. You see that look on their face. You see like how they get excited when a mascot that I created, you know, goes to a baseball game. And, you know, was playing with the kids and everything. They running up to him and everything, and they remember who he is. That means something. That really is just like, you really,
wow.
It's priceless.
Well, please tell me, I know you have a big adventure coming up. What is next for Cortland Murray?
Well, as far as personal projects, I am in the middle of working on a graphic novel, well, a series of graphic novels. It's actually been a good 15 years or so in the making, and I'm looking towards expanding on that. My current situation, I'm going to be relocating out of the area. I'm going to Houston, Texas right now.
We'll miss you. So going out west to basically follow your dream.
Yes.
And so
it's that story of, you know, an artist that is going out with not too much, but, you know, hopefully with a lot of dreams and a lot of ambition. You know, that's really what this is.
That is great. So
Thank you so much.
We'll be looking for you on the big screen.
Hope so. Hope so.
Thank you so much for coming and talking to me today.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you so
and
much.
I wish you all the best in your travels.
Appreciate it. Wish you the best too. Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Word Shop's Cafe Word also meets at the Midtown Scholar at 7:00 p.m. every Friday night. And you can celebrate their 36th anniversary with them on October 5th at the 100 Poets Reading, which I'll be hosting at the Pennsylvania State Museum in Harrisburg. And once you get all geared up at that event, then it's time to get ready for the evening event. And that is the Heavy Word Poetry Slam, which will be in New Cumberland at Coakley's, also Saturday, October 5th. And I'm really excited today to have with us one of the coordinators of this year's Heavy Word Poetry Slam, Julia Tilley. Welcome.
Hi, Maria. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. I have a few questions for you. Now, you know that you've been doing the Heavy Word Poetry Slam for several years in Harrisburg, but there are still some people out there that are not quite sure what is a poetry slam and how is that different from any other poetry reading?
All right. Well, there are some differences. At a usual reading, most of the time people stand up with a piece of paper, read their poem. At a slam, you are judged on your poetry, and a lot of people memorize it. You don't have to if you don't want to, but you are scored on not just the content of your piece, but in your presentation. So in a slam, there's usually a lot more emotion. There's a lot more range of emotion in the presentation, and a lot more amp and excitement.
That's right. That's right. Very entertaining event.
Yes.
I always say, not your mama's poetry reading, right?
No.
Well, what are some of the rules that the poets have to follow?
All right. First and foremost, it has to be an original piece, your original piece. And it has to be 3 minutes or less. You're not allowed to have any props, any background music, any musical instruments, although you are allowed to sing if you choose.
You know, I like that.
Yes, yes.
And Now, for this particular poetry slam, because there are poetry slams all over the country, but how did the Heavy Word Poetry Slam get started?
The Heavy Word Poetry Slam started in 2000. It was started by the Heavy Word Poetry Society, and that was made up of Randy and Lauren Gross, Keith Snow, and Bob Ryder. And they decided to have a slam to raise some funds for Flora Byers' Arts for Peace and Justice exhibit. And it was such a hit that they decided to continue it. So they've been having it for many years.
And that was Arts for Peace and Justice is no longer going on?
No, I think that stopped in 2008 when we sort of took a hiatus from the slam. So those sort of stopped, but then we had a lot of clamor from the poetry community wanting the slam to come back. So we did bring it back, and we were counting. I think we've decided that this is our 11th annual poetry slam, but when I was counting, I'm not really sure if it's like the second 10th or the 13th or the 12th. I'm not sure, but we're going to call it the 11th.
11 works. That's a master number. That's very good for me. So I was wondering, do you know a little bit about the organization that this Poetry Slam will be benefiting this year?
Yes, I do. Every year we donate money. We donate the proceeds to a nonprofit. First, I think I should tell you that in order to slam, you have to pay an entry fee of $10.
Yes, good
And
information.
the grand prize is $200, which is always a very important thing people want to know.
$200.
Yes, $200 prize. If you've never been to a slam and you just want to watch, or you want to come and support some of your fellow poet friends, it's $5 to be an audience member. And then the proceeds go to a nonprofit called the Better World Workshop, which is a nonprofit that identifies and implements opportunities for achieving economic development through innovations and inventions. Primarily in third world countries, inventions like a rice huller or a seed sheller, irrigation, and treadmill water pump kind of things.
Pretty much making people's lives easier.
Yes, so that they can accomplish more in an easier way to do work. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, for our first-time slammers, any special advice that you would give them as they're getting prepared to get out there and bless the mic on October 5th?
Yes, a couple things. First, I'll share the piece of advice that Marty Esworthy always likes to share for slams, and he says to wear something sparkly and shiny. And we decided that doesn't count as a prop. It's just your clothing. But no, seriously, if this is your first slam, I would suggest that you not memorize your piece. You can try, but if you're sort of feeling a little like it might be a little dicey, it's better to go with a strong presentation and perform from your page rather than try to memorize and then kind of blow it in front of the judges. Secondly, I'd say don't be afraid of the mic. You want people to hear you. You want to have a good rhythm and cadence to your performance, but you also want to speak slowly enough that people can understand you and kind of get where you're going. You want to pick a poem that you are very passionate about, and that also shows passion, that shows a wide range of emotions. So a lot of times people will do maybe like a political rant or an in-your-face to the man kind of thing. Funny poems are good if you can get the audience to laugh. Love or sex poems are also very popular. So,
are there any subjects that are taboo?
We try very hard to run a slam where everybody is respected.
Yes.
So while we don't really care what language you use, I mean, this is at Coakley's and it is an adult audience, so you can use, as my son would say, inappropriate language. We just ask that you not knock anybody or degrade anybody in any way. That this is supposed to be an uplifting time.
Sounds good, sounds good. Now, who is judging this event? What's besides me, because I am one of the judges, but
yes.
Overall, who do you have judging this event?
All right, we have, when we run our slams, we have 5 judges, and we have Craig Zuri, we obviously have you, we have G.I. Arthur
Brinson,
yes, and we also have Tamika Sun Johnson.
Great.
And then for our 5th judge, we'll have a random audience member. So we'll have a little jar where anybody who would like to be a judge can put their name, and then we'll pull someone at random to come up and help us judge.
That's great. And that kind of throws back to the National Poetry Slam and Poetry Slam history, where they've picked the judges out of the audience.
Yep.
And then the others that you listed are all poets, rappers, and have been for a long time.
Right. We look for people who understand poetry and also understand performance, because Poetry Slam is a melding of both of those.
That's wonderful. So this is going to be an exciting event. Now, for our seasoned poets out there, would they be allowed to sell CDs or books at the event?
Yes. We will have a table there. I mean, you can certainly sell them on your own throughout the slam, but we will also have a table specifically designated for poets and rappers or whoever's there. And we would be happy. We'll have it manned with some folks. We'd be happy to sell them for you, and obviously the artist gets the full amount.
Okay. So now for people to sign up, they're ready to register. We have some information here. Again, you said it was $10, right?
$10.
So $10 if they want to participate, and then they would send that to. For more information, they can email me, events@mariathepoet.com, or they would mail to right here, Central Penn College. So mail it to me at Central Penn College, 600 Valley Road, Somerdale, PA, 17093. And I will put you on the list, and they'll be registered for the slam.
Yep, and I want to make really clear, we only have 30 slots, and they usually go pretty quick. And the only way that you will have a slot reserved for you is that you must register and make the payment.
Okay.
All right, so if you want to slam, get your money in early, and we hope to see you in October.
Excellent. And you're going to be demonstrating good slam technique with the poem you brought today, right?
Yes, I will.
Wonderful. Thank you, Julia, for talking to us today.
It was wonderful to be here, Maria.
Great.
At John D. Long Lake, Ode to Susan Smith. Good drivers like us would never drive down the ramp, would never feign a carjacking, would never say a black man did it. Would never drown our children for a man, strap our babies down to the burning bed of our wrong decisions, look them in the eye as we release the brake. Good drivers like us would never listen to gravel crunch under rolling tires as the car gathers speed, hear the sound of metal hitting lake water. Would never gaze at the police artist's sketch and will it to life. No, make him a shade darker. Good drivers like us would never pose our tears for the camera, begging, please bring them back from the repose of our living room. Anticipate the arrest of a young man never born of flesh. Good drivers like us would never wait on pins and needles for Michael and Alex to return, make the deal to do the deed, or plaster the image of a man that we created to bulletin boards, tree trunks, and phone booths. Good drivers like us would never trap our kids in poorly timed images of ourselves, reflections in rearview mirrors and swamp gas, would never laugh with a man in a way that would make us forget being mothers. Good drivers like us would never shift the car to neutral on an incline by a lake, never pause our hand on the brake, tell our kids, I'll be right back, and run like hell. Good drivers like us would have stopped our ears to the wild chanting, would have howled at the moon above the pines, would have swallowed our lumps no matter how bitter, would have jumped in the lake surf ourselves to stop the car. 'Cause good drivers like us would have known how to escape from a sinking car.
Where is that intellectual space for obsidian thinkers, where noses open to the scent of Java, black as the depths of the motherland, where neo-soul envelops heavy words, where heads uplift ideas, watch them fill the air light as laughter, breathe them in strong and thick as hookah smoke. Ebony thinkers drum up Harlem thoughts. My third eye rolls down Lenox Avenue, picturing the days when we were the talk of the sharecroppers' field. Today's new Negroes go homo, reclaiming the right to be ourselves, the offspring of black fists and black firsts. We need spaces where boho-clad intellectuals can vibe dread to dread, palm roll thoughts on education, Afrocentrism, slams, and the 99. But we're sprinkled through the suburban landscape, longing to connect with souls that don't let pop culture mask true culture and parade around as identity. The verdict. A fuse blew the night we found out, right before the rains came, beating on the glass panes like fists, like heads on concrete. A fuse blew the night we found out, so we sat in the dark, hot expanse of a warehouse behind a coffee house where espresso drinks are conceived, where poets express their beliefs. Sankofa was purple from passion and pain. Dustin took us there all night and all day. Soul Cry could taste the rainbow. Then Tiger cried out from the darkened stage. The space hid his face like a hood. I'm black as hell and I know y'all can't see me. A fuse blew. Because no one can see a black boy in the dark when the rains come. No one can see a black boy in the dark when the rains come. And the night was as heavy and thick as Shane's poems are true. Indeed, we heard it then. From lips that had just spit the deepest wisdom. We heard it then. A ghetto-issued proclamation, a herald to we, the scribes, and we almost clapped out of habit. We almost snapped out of habit. We almost snapped out because we heard it then. As the smartphones buzzed like black women on the back pew, we heard it then. The collective gasp, the curses, the questions, the verdict. Zimmerman, not guilty. Not guilty? A fuse blew. You cannot hate on me, 'cause my mind is free. Feel my destiny, so shall it be. You cannot hate on me, 'cause my mind is free. Feel my destiny, so shall it be. Do you feel it? It's in her side glance and then the whispers that end in a laugh louder than any joke that's been told. It's the back that turns like a door slam, the dismissive high-pitched tuh, and the drawn out with that French knob twisted mouth. Like a key with misplaced grooves, you're locked out. For her, the sight of you hurts. Your smile shines light on her tears, and the hard R's at the end of words, they're like a blow to the gut. She needs to make you flatten your nose against the glass, feel your otherness. Because if they knew that you and she were one, they'd know she could have done more, strived for more, achieved more. And she fears you know this. And she fears you know. And she fears you. And she fears. The Post-Black Manifesto. Post-Black is the new black. Obsidian and centered. It's spit from full lips, slips from pen tips. It'll live in your mouth tomorrow. Forget Webster, red-backed and gorged with lies. Post-Black spreads too wide. Torrey didn't start this. Not Ellis, not Womack. It lives in your hood, but it's global, as American as apple pie and slave shacks. Post-Black art moves free, without being house-slaved by field slaves, without being strung up by the Willie lynched. an international word, just a word, and the word, a movement. It's simplerful, so don't dread it. Don't get locked in. Post-Black psychology reacts to hood rats with paroxysm. Post-Black lit, Post-Black bourgeoisie, and y'all. The poetry heads, the Afro-futurists, Black leaders arguing about butt dancing for Clinton. Post-Black in response to a war without end. Post-Black revolution, you friends and also poets, ballers, drum makers, mega church minions. Post-Black hates hot combs and plays out in the sun too long. Post-Black is Harlem, Atlanta, Charlotte. Post-Black poets talk white. So they've been told. They write nature, love, beaches, and even can win gold with pigeon peas in the kitchen. Post-Blacks have been called bourgeois, Oreo, high yellow, and new, inspiring eye rolls from haters and wish I coulds. Say post-Black like Dada, become famous, achieve eternal bliss. With head nod and dap, with a quick terrorist fist bump. Say it till you lose it. Say it till you black out. Get rid of everything that smacks of essentialism. Say post-Black, because post-Black is the world's soul. Post-Black is the point. Post-Black is the world's best African black soap. Post-Black President Obama, post-Black Dr. Cosby, post-Black Ms. Winfrey. Boundless, limitless, self-defined, climbing like new Negroes on mountains of art, souls have grown deep, rooted in, but unrestricted by blackness. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, or post-Black. I say do you, especially when you are an artist. Be free and express yourself. My book is called Talking White, and you can get it from any indie bookstore near you and on Amazon.com. To find out where I'll be performing next, follow me on Twitter at Maria the Poet, or check out my website, mariathepoet.wordpress.com. I am your hostess, Maria James-Thiaw. That does it for this edition of Culture in Maine.